Hey guys, welcome to another video from the Parrott Bros. Now today we're going to be doing a video on engine sort of familiarization. I'm going to be showing you just some of the basics as to where things are, how to check certain things, and also if you own a TT already and you want to have a little look and just make sure everything looks like it should, what to check, what are the common failures, and all of that kind of good stuff. So before we get stuck into it, let's jump into the intro. Right, so before we get stuck into the engine bay good stuff, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click on that subscribe button and tap that bell icon to get all the notifications of all the new videos. If you're already a subscriber, you know. Thank you very much. Right, let's get on with the video. Okay, so you've got yourself an Audi TT Mark 1. Now this, whether it's a 3.2, 1.8, it shouldn't matter too much. Some of the things will look different. Obviously the 3.2 looks completely different and half of this won't be relevant, but some of the basics will be, like your coolant, your brake fluid, checking oil and all that kind of good stuff, and what things are. So I do apologise if obviously I don't cover all models. I have got a 225 here, so that is pretty much what I'm going to be basing it on, but it is quite similar for all of the 1.8s and then obviously some of the 3.2s. Now we'll come with some of the familiarization stuff first. Let's just get you a bit closer so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, so there we go, beautiful. Right, so we'll go over some of the basic stuff first. So you've got your coolant tank, which is where your engine coolant is. You need to measure it on the lower side here. There is a mark for minimum and maximum. Really easy to check. If you can't see it properly, take that one screw off. This cover pulls out. That's your coolant sorted. We have done a separate video on changing the bottle if your bottle's a bit yellow, as it is a super common issue. If you want to check your engine oil, dipsticks here. Now, if you don't have, like some reason the previous owners removed this panel for me, thank you. Just hold on to the dipstick tube when you pull your dipstick out, because otherwise you do have the capability of pulling out the dipstick tube off of the engine, which is very annoying. And then if you want to top it up under your cap there, very simple. If you don't have a cover, you might have a big black spout, which is where you pour your oil into. Again, it'll be the same cap, don't worry about that. Now, brake fluid. This one is a bit more fiddly. Now, even I think this place is stupid, but what can I do? It's too late now. Now, the brake fluid reservoir is there. Not the easiest thing to get to, not the easiest thing to check, but you shouldn't really have to check that unless your light is on the dash, and then you can pop it out, pull the cap off and check it. Not super hard, little bit fiddly, annoying 100%. So that's kind of your main fluids. Power steering fluid is actually under here. You take that trim off and there is a black cap. Should we do it? Yeah, let's do it. We need an Allen key bit. Makes sense for me to show you, doesn't it? So the only downside to having these fancy trims, they're a bit of a pain to take off. So like I said, pull this out, put it to one side. Here you have your coolant, your steering, power steering fluid. Now to check that, you'll need something like a large, I'll tell you what, let's do this again, shall we? You need yourself a large flat-headed screwdriver, or what I would recommend using is either a chisel, not a sharp one, of course, or a file. A file will fit in there perfectly, and it gets you a nice bit of purchase to get that loose. Now there's a couple of markings, and it's sort of pretty obvious. It says min and max on it, minimum, maximum. Now the fluid should always be the green one. If you have a TT, it is the green one, which is the Audi one, which is CHF. But that is pretty much it in that area. Let's get you a little bit of a close-up so you can see the bottle a bit better. See what I'm talking about? So on the bottle, see if you can see it there. There's a minimum and max sort of chevron. Mine's sort of teetering in between min and max at the moment. And that gives you a bit of an idea. Now, the only other things that you may or may not have, obviously depending on what previous owners have done, is have a carbon canister. This can be deleted. Whether you should or not, I wouldn't, because it was fitted for a reason, but obviously if it's leaking, it can be removed, and then you have to look at carbon canister deletes. But I won't go into deletes because this is basic standard engine. So we'll pop this cover back on. I'll screw it a bit later on. That just pushes into there under there, and on it goes. Simple enough. So that is that. Let's move on to other things in the engine bay. We have your battery. I haven't got mine screwed on because I've only just changed it because it kept going flat. So there's my voltmeter for checking it. Battery fuses. One thing you should always familiarise yourself with. Let me get the camera so you can have a little bit of a better look. Now, there is fuses. I'll pop a picture up of what each one does now. So that gives you an idea of what each one does. Now, you should always check these, not always, but once in a while, if you're cleaning your engine bay or anything like that, just pop it out, check them all, make sure none of the colours, they look discoloured, make sure these fuses are still good, because if they're not, then your fans might not be working, your car could overheat, or you could have a problem with your alternator and all that kind of good stuff. So definitely worth a check, easy enough, anyone can do it, you don't have to be particularly mechanically minded, you know whether it looks right or it doesn't look right. So that's kind of the bulk of the checking your battery area. Okay, so once you put your battery cover back, we'll move on to the other items in the engine bay. We've got the air filter, you could have an air box, you have the mass airflow, the MAF, you have the N75 valve. Now these two are the most common for boost issues. We do have a separate video covering boost issues, so if you have a problem, I'll pop that up in the corner of the screen right now. Now, these again, both very easily changed. The MAF is bolted into there and onto the turbo intake pipe, which in my case is an oversized silicone one. You may have the original corrugated rubber one, which is fine. Again, they'll all be in the same position. The MAF, you pull the clip towards it and pull it away, then that's it, done. The N75 has 3 pipes, one into the turbo intake pipe, one down to the turbo, and the other one goes across to something else. I'll put the diagram on there for you now, and it is clipped in here. So again, very simple, just squeeze the clips, pull it away. Both very easy to change. If you've had a 1.8 turbo for any length of time, you'll know how to change them, because it is kind of one of them things. They do have kind of a life expectancy of probably, let's say, 50 to 100,000 miles. This has done 200,000 miles, so that's definitely not the original ones. Let's get this engine cover off. Then we will carry on. So we've got engine cover off, 2 screws, and then it's in clips at the back. It'll be in a clip there, and it has a clip somewhere else. We'll just put this out of the way. Now we can see a bit more. So you've got, let me see what you can see. So you've got your diverter valve here, your DV, recirculating valve, which gets rid of boost pressure back into the air system when you change gear or when you let off the power. And this is in the fitted into the turbo intake pipe. Again, you have your hockey puck, which goes into the turbo intake pipe, which is for the crankcase breather system. Again, quite often common to fail, and this is quite often common to split as well. So this is quite a common problem. So definitely check these pipes. This goes onto a hard pipe which goes down and under the inlet manifold into the Pcv system, which is a whole video on its own. But basically you're just looking for any sort of sweating or any sort of dirtiness. Now, this is kind of the same with everything in the engine bay. Quite often, if you've got a BAM, or I believe an APX, you'll have the tensioner, you have the variable valve timing, the VVT solenoid there, which can quite often leak around it. Also, you want to sort of get your finger and just wipe across your rocker cover in different places, and it shouldn't be leaking. You shouldn't have any oil on your finger. If you do, there's a likelihood is your rocker cover is leaking. It's quite a common one, really cheap to fix. A little bit fiddly because obviously you've got to take all of this good stuff off, but it's not horrendous. But it's quite a common problem. If you're getting a bit of an oily smell in the cabin, that's probably your answer. Again, check down the side. Is the solenoid a bit sweaty? Mine is, but I haven't cleaned it since I've changed it, so it's my fault. But yeah, so just check around there for sweatiness. Now, on your inlet manifold, here you have your 4 injectors and your fuel pressure, 4-bar fuel pressure sensor, 3-bar fuel pressure sensor, depends if it's mapped. Again, you're looking for sweatiness, you're looking for leaks. Your injectors sit in cups down here. You want to check them, make sure there's no sort of sweatiness, because obviously if your fuel is leaking, the dust will attract to it, stick on it, and then you'll have that sort of dirtiness. Look, now I've cleaned mine. Mine is very clean, which I'm surprised. I thought it was going to be muckier by now, but it's not. And to remove those, they have a little clip on and you just squeeze these clips and they lift out. You can then take you can undo the cabling from this side and it flips up. Vice versa, this cabling actually comes off of this. You just pull the tab from underneath like that, and then you can lift it away. But there's a whole separate video. If you look down through the gaps of your inlet manifold, you can see your PCV system. Now this is something you want to look at because it's super common for leaking, and it makes a right mess, and you can use oil. It makes the oil smell, burning, leaking oil everywhere, and all that kind of bad stuff. So super common. It blocks up and then leaks. The oil perishes the rubber pipes and then causes leaks as well. So super common. You see a lot of people fitting catch can installs. That is the reason why, because they want to get rid of this PCV system. What else have we got? We got the N249 system. This is commonly removed by people, or I like to keep it because it was fitted. It controls your unwanted boost pressure. So it's certainly one thing to look at before you remove it. So always think before you do something, check into it, read up what you're removing prior to removing it. Just because the internet says you can doesn't mean you should. But then that's said about a lot of things, isn't it? That we do that we're not supposed to. So yeah, certainly look into this. I mean, if it's a case of it's got some split pipes, replace them. It's all tiny little sort of 3mm and 8mm silicon. You can easily swap it out, not too much of an issue. If it's fitted, Audi fitted it for a reason. It might be for emissions, it might be for boost control. So look into that. You've got your charge pipe. Now this is part of your intercooler system. So it comes through here, sort of air comes into your turbo, up through here, down intercooler, across intercooler, back up into your inlet manifold. That is the root of the system, and is common for leaks. Often people remove, there's a jacket here, I don't know where you can see that, but there's a jacket there which covers the silicon. Now if the silicon gets damaged, the exhaust manifold with the turbos right there, that gets 600, 700, 800 degrees hotter. So that can melt that, hence the reason there's a heat jacket around it, and it sort of reflects the heat so that it doesn't get hot and melt, and then it could actually catch fire. So do check that. If you've got your engine bay open, have a quick look, no stress, look, yep, it's got a heat jacket, happy days. These two pipes one goes to your diverter valve, the other one goes to something else. Again, just make sure they're all right. Coil packs, they're all there. So these are different ones. They should have a weather seal, they haven't, because I've not been bothered to put it on because I need to check the loom, because the loom on this is actually, oh here we go, it's split. It wasn't split before, but it is now, so that's good. Bad for me, but good for you. Let's zoom you in there, see if you can see. So you can just about see there. See where my finger is? That's actually exposed copper, which shouldn't be. It should be covered in sleeving, so that I need to address ASAP, because that's going to cause me grounding issues if I'm not careful. So just check your wiring. These are little pop clips. You can pop them off, pop them back together. Just check all the loom, make sure there's no breaks in the cable, because like that, after a time they get hot, they get wear, and they strip like that, which is bad news. Also, have a look at your coil packs. They're not hard to change. But just have a look, make sure they're all the same brand, because someone might have changed one. So you've got one that's different from the rest, which means one's new, but the other three may fail. Usually, rule of thumb, if one goes, the others will follow shortly, because they're all the same design life. Relatively easy to swap. There's loads of videos on YouTube on how to do that. And that is where your spark plugs are, underneath your coil packs. Very simple. The other thing that causes a lot of problems with 1.8 turbos is coolant pipes and coolant fittings. Now, I don't know if you've spotted that silver fitting there. That's what I'm going to show you next. Exciting stuff, I know. So, the bulk of your coolant stuff is kind of here in this sort of area of the engine bay. Now, this silver coolant adapter that I have here is actually to replace this black plastic one there, and that goes to your radiator and all other places. And often, because it's plastic and it gets brittle, this bit, oh, didn't realise I zoomed in, this bit can snap off, and then you're leaking coolant out of here. It can damage there, because obviously it's plastic. It gets, how many heat cycles do you reckon that's done? How many times do you reckon your car's been started and run in the 20 odd years it's been up? So the plastic can get brittle and break. What I will show you as well is, I've just remembered, The other reason I want to do my coolant pipes is because they're very perished. Wait for it to zoom in. There we go. Look at the state of that rubber. That is absolutely destroyed. I don't know if you can see just about there. See the cracking? Obviously I'm going to do track days with this, so I don't want that going on me, but you can see there that's actually cracking, and then obviously that's where it's just perished to heck. And the only thing you need to do to change all of these basically is to buy that hose clip tool which does those clips, those horrible, horrible, evil clips, which if you've got the tool makes life a heck of a lot easier. I've actually bought two tools. There's one with a wire so you can do things that you can't get to with the grips, or there is one that does ones you can get to. But that is pretty much the basics of it. You've got your second after run pump here, which once your car's been running is your secondary water pump, and it should be running for about 10 minutes after you've turned the car off. If it's not, then it's faulty and it needs changing, because on turbo cars it cools down the coolant on your car. If you've been out for a good blast, your car's red hot, you come in, you turn it off, it is bad news. So what it does is it flows coolant around the engine for an additional 10 minutes after you've been driving. So good times. That's pretty much it in the engine bay basics. One thing I will say is if you've got a coolant leak, if you notice your coolant's dropping, or if you know if you're losing oil, coolant should be pink, and it dries in like a pink crystally kind of substance, which usually makes it really easy to find. The first places I'd check is on the top and bottom of your radiator. There's a socket which has like a metal C-clip that goes over it. Sometimes it can leak from there, so you'll have maybe a deposit at the top or the bottom. Often you'll get, it could be leaking from this pipe that I said about. Again, quite common. And then failing that, here, I don't know how well you can see, where my finger is, underneath this horrible hose, there is another water pipe fitting, which has the coolant temperature sensor in. So if your coolant temperature sensor is dancing all over the place, that is what is going to need to be changed. Again, always go for genuine if you can. I'm just going to try and find the metal one I've got to show you. Apparently I can't find it. Typical. But yeah, so always check that coolant temperature sensor. Always set, like I said, make sure it's always genuine. It goes into there, and that actually bolts onto the engine block itself, which is where the coolant veins come through. And that's kind of it. There is other things to go through. There is other things to check. Obviously, you've got your alternator, and there's loads of other good stuff. Compressor for your aircon and stuff. The two radiator fans. One thing I should say about them is they can fail, and if they do fail, then it can cause you issues. Your car will start overheating, or you'll notice your second fan comes on, which is crazy loud. And if you notice that coming on all the time, then you may have a problem. So definitely check that. There's a few things to do with fans. I'm going to do a separate video at a later date, because fans are the bane of my life, so I'll explain them a bit more thorough for you in a separate video. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this, there's plenty more in there. I think we're coming up on 90 videos on TT stuff now. So jump over to the channel, go into playlist, look on the Audi TT Mark 1 playlist. There is an absolute ton of videos on there. But as of always, guys, thanks for watching. That's been another video from the Parrott Bros. Bye for now.